In this tutorial, we will build a login form application with OAuth2 combined. We will have the basic login and we also have the OAuth2 where you will log in with the provided details that you give to the apps, and then you will also sign it with your GitHub credential. So let's test this and see what you will going to build here. If we provide the username and then the password, so we will log into the dashboard. So here is the dashboard that we have, and let's log out. So we will log out using this URL logout. So we log out successfully, as you see, and then once we try to sign it with GitHub, it will check us to the GitHub. So you see we have signed it to GitHub to continue to coding techniques. Here you see the image we provided. Okay, so it is showing you that you are signing to the coding techniques app. So when we provide the credential, let me provide the credential, so at gmail.com, that is my email that I used to sign into GitHub, then and provide the password. Okay, so once we sign in, it will take us to this dashboard. Welcome to coding techniques. Okay, this is what we will going to build. So again, once we log in, we log out using the URL logout. It log the user out. You see we have logged out successfully. So this is what we will going to build together. If you doesn't have an account with GitHub, as a developer you have to create one, so that we will go along in this tutorial. We have this architecture for the basic login, where the request will be intercepted by the authentication filters and then sent to the authentication manager, and then authentication manager will delegate the responsibility to the authentication provider, where the authentication provider will use the password encoder and user detail service. Then it will return to the security context, that is in the case of a success authentication. And when the request is not success, so it will return the 403. That is forbidden. Okay, as you see here. And then for the OAuth2, here is what we have. This is the user management with OAuth2 example. The user will access each of his app that he is using if the authorization with the authorization server. Here we have app X as the authorization server, and here is the list of apps, app 1, app 2, app 3, with the same user and password. That is the architecture of the OAuth2, and in this case we will be using GitHub as the authorization server, where we will have our app to authorize the user with his credential for the app X, that is the GitHub. Okay, so that is the basic architecture we will be using. What you will learn in this tutorial: you will learn how to build OAuth2 application with Spring Web MVC and Spring Security. You will learn how to use Spring Security in Spring Boot. You will learn how to set your custom login form with Spring Security, and you will learn how to register with authorization server, in this case GitHub, and you will learn how to set authorization server properties in Spring Security. Okay, let's build this together. Let's create a new project for our application. Here in the STS, go to Spring Starter project, click next. So it is contacting the web service. Okay, so this is the all project that I have done, which is I will delete this and change the description. So I will leave the group as coding techniques as well as the package. Now the name of this is login application with OAuth2. Login app with OAuth2. 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 Okay, so then the description is login application with OAuth2. Okay, so I will be using Maven here and the Java version 17, the language Java. So now let's go next and add the dependencies. So click next. First we need a Spring Web dependency. It is a web application, and then we need the Spring Security, and then we also need the template because we will write the custom login that we have. Okay, so and we also need the Spring Boot Dev tool for the live reload. Okay, so these are the dependencies we need so far, and then let's click on the finish project. So it is initializing the project import getting started. So the next thing we will do is to run the application once it's started to make sure there is no any. So here is our just initialized project, and if we open, we have this package coding techniques. Inside this package we have this class. Okay, now let's run this application. Okay, so we will see that we have a generated password which by default provided by the Spring Security. Okay, you see we have this password and the username will be user. Okay, so to test this if it is working now and to log in with this password, let's create an endpoint face. Let's create a new package here. Okay, and name this package controller. Okay, controller, then let's define a new class. So let's name this the user controller. So inside this controller we will annotate this with address controller because we expect it to return a text which is a string. Let happen and pass home. So let's define the method to handle this. Public string, then let's name this home. Okay, so this will return just a text home. Okay, so we will try to access this endpoint. So you see the live reload is working. Okay, now to do this, let me comment this out. Let me remove this tab, sorry. So let's try to access this home. You see it take us to the please sign in. We will provide the username and the password. So now what is the username and the password? Then we will check here in the console. So this is the password, and the username is by default user. So let's go back to this, name this user, so and then provide this. So it takes us to this home that we just create. Okay, now we will change this implementation, we will override this, we will have our own implementation phase. Then so to do this, we will create a security config. This is where our application starts. Okay, the next thing we will do is to create the security config class. Okay, now let's create a new package, which is configuration, where we will define our security configuration. Let's name this package configuration. Okay, click finish. Okay, so now we will create a new class and name this class security config. So click finish. Okay, now we have the security config. The first thing we will do is to annotate this class with @configuration. Annotating a class with @configuration means that the class is the source for bin. Okay, so now inside this we will have a user details and the password encoder, where we will define a user. So first let's add a bin of public user details service. Okay, so we will define the user inside this user details service and use the in-memory user details manager. And if you want, you will store the user in the database instead of the in-memory user details manager. And if you want this, I have a tutorial on this in this channel. You can check a login application below this video. You will have the tutorial and you can see how you will manage the user in the database, but for now I will be using this. So let's have the user details interface and then have the user. We will define a user using the user class provided by the Spring Security. User that with username. Here let's provide the username. I will use my name as the username, then followed by the password. So the password I will use 1234. Here the password is plain text, and then authority I will use this read. Okay, so the last thing is to call the build method, and you see we have this. Now the next thing, we will return the user inside the in-memory user details manager. In-memory user details manager. So it is searching for the okay, you see we have this user details and we have a collection of the user details if you are to define a lot of users. Okay, for now we are defining only one user for this, so let's add, we will pass the user here. Okay, so here we have the user details service, and then the next thing is the password encoder. As I just shown in the beginning of this video, The authentication manager uses the user details service and the password encoder. Okay, so we have delegating password encoder, where you can add this for the plain text, which is no OAuth password encoder. You will define it like this, and if you want, you will, if it is by crypt, you will define it something like this, which is by crypt. So I don't want to use this. I prefer to define another bin for this. If you define this bin public password encoder, then this will return no OAuth password encoder. We doesn't use the new because it will return the, we will call a method get instance, so it return the instance of the OAuth password encoder. As you can see, this is deprecated. That is because it is not advisable to use the OAuth password encoder or to store the plain text in the database. That is because storing plain text has no security. Okay, let's save this. And so what we will define next is the security filter chain. You see, we have two bins so far. As I said, the add configuration is a source for bin. Okay, now let's continue. Add bin public security filter chain. Okay, so this is taking us security filter chain, and then we will have the HTTP security pass in this method, HTTP. So let's start using this HTTP dot. Okay, here we will disable the CSRF. We will use the customizer, where we will use the lambda. Okay, inside this I will use the C as the lambda variable, then C dot disable. Okay, I have tutorial on the CSRF, which is cross-site request forgery, and you can check on it and this channel. So let's access another method. The next method will be authorize HTTP request, where we will set all to authenticated. Authorize HTTP request, and the lambda for this I will use a name request. Sometimes choosing a name is a good, and it's showing the sign of a clean cut request dot, then any request authenticated. That is, we are authenticating all requests for now. So, and then the next thing I will do is to call the form login. So I will use this, but for form login we will use the default form for now. Later we will define our form. So let's use this to test, and we will use with default. Okay, so let's close this, and we will return the http dot build. So okay, and this will will throw an exception. Let's add this to throw declaration. Okay, So this is what we have so far, and the next thing is to test the application, and we will try to access the home. Okay, so let's rerun this. So the application is running, and we will check later. Okay, so let's go back to the browser and try to access the home. Okay, so that is because we did not log out from the previous session. Okay, you see we log out. Now what we will provide is the name Aliyu1234. Okay, so you see it signed me in, and it is showing this error because we are trying to access this part. Okay, so now if we add home, you will see us in, and to clear that, let's start it again. Log out and try to access the home. It will take us to login. So when we enter, okay, you see, okay, now our implementation is working. Okay, so the next thing we will do is that we will change the view of the form. Okay, how we will do this, let me show you. Let's go back to the browser, local, let's log out. You see this login form is provided by the Spring Security. Now we will want to add our own, so and let's do this together in next. Okay, now in this section we will provide our own login form. So we will remove this customizer with default, and we will provide our own. Okay, so to do this, I will use ChatGPT to generate the HTML form, and here it is. So I asked this question HTML CSS form with option to sign with GitHub link, and then as you can see it provides this, all this. So we need to separate the CSS and the HTML form, and it is a lot more easier than writing all these. It will take a long time, and if you want, you will generate this using the ChatGPT, and if you want the same as this one, I will provide a link to the repository, okay, to my GitHub repository for this project, and you will get this insight. So if you want, we will copy this, but first thing, let's define add get mapping for the login. Okay, we will have login here. So, and we will provide public string login. So, and this will return a login page. Okay, so we will create a login page. So to do this, and this is returning a text while this is returning HTML page. For this, we will get rid of the address controller and use the add controller, since we have this method that will return the page. And to return text here, let's annotate this with at response body. Okay, so here you may ask, we have, it is a login form, and we only have a get mapping. So the post mapping is already provided by the Spring Security. You don't need to worry about this. So to test this phase, we need to create the login here in the template, new HTML file, and let's have the login. So you see we have this login. Okay, so click finish. So let's paste this and save it. Okay, so we will start working on this. Here let's create a new folder, CSS. So inside this folder we will define a CSS file where we will change this. Okay, so for the CSS file, let's click here and then name this login CSS, login.css. Okay, so here is the CSS, and let's go back to the HTML page. We will copy all this code CSS. Okay, so let's copy all these, as you can see. Then we go back to the and paste it here. Okay, that is, and we will give access to this, because if it doesn't give access to this, the Spring Security will block access to this part. Let's go back to the security config and define the request matcher string. Here we will have the CSS, which is the folder, and the subfolders. It will give access to this. So, and we will call the permit all on this, which is only this part. Any request will be authenticated. Okay, as we are having this now, so let's go back to the login HTML, and then we need to remove this. So after removing this, we will link our HTML using the link attribute. So let's call the link. So inside this, let's first pass the rel as style sheet. Okay, so and then have the href to point to our CSS equal to at, then we will have the like this, then our folder CSS, then login.css. Okay, so on the next thing we will do is to go back to the security config, and we will change this definition. Okay, how we will do this is we will define a lambda form. So after defining, we will permit the login that we just created. So let's have the lambda form like this, lambda variable, and we will access the members. So first we will set the login page to our, okay, something like this, login. So and then login processing URL, login processing URL. This will also be log in. Okay, so we need what again? That is default success, which is the home URL. Default success URL. So we set this to home. Okay, we already have this home. Okay, now so we have this, and the last thing, we will go back to the login.html and add the attribute to the form, which is the method post, and map it to our login. If you see is in at the controller, we define this login. So we will go back to this. Inside this, let me delete this phase. We will add the method equal to post. Okay, and then we will also need to map this action to our login. So we have this /login. Okay, so you see what is provided here. It doesn't provide the name, so Spring Security will not get this as valid unless we provide the name. It won't know the username unless we provide the name. This will be user name, and this will be password. Okay, so there is something. We will go back to the security. We will permit this because login page is permit to all, so that you can provide credential. So let's rerun this. Despite we have the live reload, we need to rerun this because we did a lot of work here. Okay, now it is running, you see. So let's go back to create new type. So okay, so we are having this error, and let's check here what is the error about. Could not pass the expiration login. Okay, so this is inside team leaf. Okay, let's go back to team leaf. So that is why we are having this, because it's supposed to be like this. Okay, and this is the right way to define this. Let's rerun the app. So we won't have this error again. Localhost login. So you see what it's provided. That is the same form that we have here. So you see what we have here. Okay, now let's test our to see if it works. 1 2 3 4. So it takes us to the successful page. Okay, now there is something we will add to this form, which is logout. Okay, so this is what we will do next. So okay, so now we need to define our logout feature. So we will go to the security config, and then so for the OAuth2 we will provide something like this, which is OAuth2 form login. But for now we want to finish the definitions. So let's add the logout. So let me remove this face. For the logout, we will use the customizer, and then which is the one with the lambda. So let's start the definition here. Form, let's name it this form, it doesn't matter, form, and then so we will start assessing the method. So we will call the invalidate HTTP session and so to true. This method, by the name, it is direct. You will understand it by the name. It is telling that if we log out, then it will invalidate the HTTP session. The HTTP session will not longer be valid. And then we have that clear authentication, which we will also set this to true. So it will clear the authentication, so the user information that will be cleared. Okay, so and then the next thing we will do is we will define the logout URL, which we will use the logout request matcher. We have the logout request matcher, and inside this we need a class which we will define, which is path matcher. So path request and path request. This is capital and path request matcher. So you see we have this, and here we will define the logout. So and then we will provide the logout successful URL. Logout successful URL. So here will be login, then logout like this. So let's permit this, permit all, and we close this like this. So this is all we need to define here, and we will go back to our login.html. We need to have a text that is log out successfully if we have logout. Okay, so let me define a class here. Okay, let's have a div. So with the class message, class message. So inside this first we need, there is attribute th if, and if we have error accessing, it will show the incorrect email or password. First let's define this. Okay, we need this attribute, then followed by param dot error, so something like this, and then let's duplicate this if the logout. So this one we will have this if we have error accessing, and for this one we will have it only if we are logout. So we will just define a text inside, incorrect for this, incorrect email or password, and for this one we will have logout successfully. So it's okay like this, and let go. We will use this message that we just defined to align this to center, but first let's see how it works. Okay, let's go back to the login. So let me log out. logout. So you see we have logout successfully and it is not aligned to center. So let's go to the login.css and call this with .message, and then we have the text align center. So let's save this. Now okay, you see we have this, and let's add a wrong credential. So you see it is showing that incorrect password. Okay, so this is nice. And the next thing we will do, as you can see, if we access the home page, we are having this. We need to define a dashboard for this, which will be, if we access, you will see the dashboard here. Okay, now this is what we will going to do next. Okay, now in this section we will focus on the dashboard, where we will create a home HTML. So first, let's go back to the user controller and we will remove this at response body, since that we will create a home. Let's take this to small letter, and then so let's create new home, which is HTML file. This is as simple. First, let's add HTML file home. So we don't need to have ChatGPT to create this for us. It is just a simple dashboard. And let's have a div and name this, give it a class as dashboard. Okay, so we have this dashboard, and inside this we will only have two elements. First is the header, which is h1, and h1 is we will have welcome to the coding techniques. So, and then we will have a text. So p sorry, okay, it's already provided. Inside this we will have don't forget to subscribe. So this is just a dashboard, and share. Okay, so let me add, okay, subscribe. Okay, for don't we have a spelling error, let's have this. Okay, so and then here we will create new folder. Okay, so sorry, CSS, and name it home. So to link this that we just created, home.css, let's go back to the login, copy this link, go back to the home, and we will have inside the head. So all we want to change here is home to differ from the first one, and here we'll create a home, so as title. So this is all, and let's style this. Okay, so we will start with the body. So we will start with the body, and let's have the font family. As the Arial and sans serif. Okay, so I need a background color, background color. So the background color will be, I will use a color F1. So let's check this, what we have. You see what it look like now. So let's continue to add some features. Welcome to coding techniques. As you see, the background changes. Let's have margin to 0, padding, because we will be defining the div later, something like this. And so let's add the dashboard. So the background color of the dashboard will differ. So let me copy this. The background color here will be white, FFF. So let's check. You see we have difference here, and let's reduce the width of this. Okay, the width, let the width to be with 80%, and then let's see the width here. Okay, so we have to settle this with the margin property. For the vertical we need 50 pixel, and the horizontal we need to settle this as auto. So let's check it again. Okay, the changes doesn't take effect. So let me add a padding. Face padding will be 20 pixel, and then border radius at pixel, border radius at pixel. Let's save this. So you see what we have so far, it doesn't settle. That is because, let's go to, I have comma here, I forgot to, so that is why we doesn't see the changes. And when we refresh, so let me remove this. So you see we have it here, and like it is working as we expected. Okay, now the next thing we will add is that we will add text align center, text align to center. So you see it settled here in the center, and then let's go back to add more properties. We need a boxed shadow. The box shadow will be 0 pixel, then 10 pixel, 0 pixel, and you will see what we have in this in a second. Okay, so inside these we will have, let's define a color 0 0 0, and then have 1.0 like this. So let's see what we have here. It doesn't text effect, RGBA. So let's save this again. Okay, you see it text effect, and then so the last thing we will do is to have the dashboard header and the dashboard text. We will add some properties. Okay, so for the header in the dashboard, H1 will have margin bottom, bottom 2, 10 pixel, color 2. Let me add this 3 like this, and then font size equal to 24 pixel. So let me check what I have so far. Okay, so on what's remaining is that the text in the dashboard, which is P, and then we will have to add just a color, which is hash 666. So let's check what we have so far. So this is exactly what we have, and then we finish with the implementation of this dashboard. So the next thing we will do is to have our own OAuth2 login. We will register with GitHub. So let's do this next. Okay, as you can see here, as I said, registering with GitHub, it requires our app to provide some details to GitHub. Okay, so and here is the link to creating new application settings in the GitHub with OAuth2. And then so since that we have this, let's copy. I will provide this to these links in the video description, and you will check on it. Okay, so let's go to, okay, let's provide this. Okay, you see it take us here. It asks the application name, which is coding techniques, and homepage URL. Here I will just name home. Callback URL, this is our callback URL, which is a base URL. So if you need, you can add the description. It is optional. We provide these coding techniques can also provide this. Okay, so let's register this application. So on registering this application, if you want, we will add the logo. Let's add this, and you see I have this. Let's click on it. So you see set new logo, so that when we authenticate to see our logo, you see this is set to FFF. There is a white behind our logo, and I don't want this. I want it to be black, since that it is black. So let's set this to black. Okay, it is better now. Okay, so what we want to do here is, let's copy our client ID first, because we will be using the client ID later. So we will skip this client ID. Let's keep it here, client ID. So we also need a secret, client secret. And how we get this is that, as you see here, we have generate new client secret. So use GitHub mobile or use password. So I will use password, and so once I provide the password, it will give me access. So let's return this to black. Okay, so now that we have this, you see we have our client secret. Let's copy this again, and then have the client secret here. Okay, we have the client secret. So now what we will do next, first let's go back to make sure, let's update the application, because we add some changes. Okay, so this is all we need to do here. The next thing that we will do is we will add those properties in our application, and let's do this together. So now let's go back to the application and start settings this. Okay, so we will need to add a dependency called OAuth2 client. So to add the OAuth2 client, let's go to the pom.xml. Let's go to the Spring add status. So here are we. Okay, as you can see, let's start the OAuth2 client. So this is the dependency. Click next. So here is the OAuth2 client that we have. Okay, copy all non-conflicting changes to the right. So finish. Let's go back to the pom.xml and check if we have this. Okay, so it is updating Marvin project, and So it's nearly finished downloading the sources. Okay, so let's check this. As you can see, we have a two client. Okay, it's okay. Now we will start having our implementation. Inside the security config, let's go to the top. So let's start defining our client here. So first we need a private client registration. We use this to register a client registration to have our client. So we have this, and then this will return client registration class, which we will access the static members. Client registration, then we will access with registration ID. The registration ID here is GitHub, and then we also have the client secret. So before passing the client secret, we will pass the client ID. So if we doesn't forget, you have it here. So you have to provide your own, and this will not longer be available after finishing this tutorial. I will delete this client secret. Okay, so we will provide the client secret. Here is the client secret. So let's go back to the application, and then so we need the client authentication method, and we will use the client secret basic client authentication method. So it is, we have static members, and I will choose client secret basic, and it will authenticate the client using the basic, which is just a client ID with the secret. And then we need to access the next method, which will be scope, and I will set this scope to read. Scope are like granted authorities here, and then I set this to read, and we need the authorization URL. So let's add the authorization URI. Okay, so for the authorization URL first, let's go to this. Let's check this. So that is where we will get the GitHub authorization URL. So it is showing that. Okay, so this is the authorization URL. All we need to do is copy this and add it to our project. So it will use this to URL to authorize the user, and then we need a token URL. So the client will be given an access token. So the client is in between the authorization server and the user, so he will give a token so that he can access your credential. So we need this token URL. So let's go back to here. If we scroll down, you see we have this as the token URL. Simple, copy this and add this here, and we also need the user info URL. So this is as simple as this. The user info URL is where the URL where the client will get the information about the user, and here is the user info URL. So let's go back to the application, and we also need the username attribute name. Username attribute name, and we will pass ID. The reason we are passing ID, whatever the GitHub represent as a ID of the user, so that is what we will set as the username attribute name. And then if we continue, we will add the client name. So let's name the client as coding techniques, and so we also need the authorization grant type. If you need more information about the authorization grant type, take my OAuth2 tutorial on this channel. So for this, let me use the authorization grant type dot authorization code. I explained this in detail in this tutorial. And then redirect URL. So the redirect URL will be in this pattern. The base URL followed with the login, and is expect a code. We will add this, and then we also need OAuth2 before the code. So then the registration ID. The registration ID is GitHub, but here we will need to pass it as the parameter registration ID. So then we will call the build. Okay, so we have this as a client registration. Okay, so we need a client registration repository, and we will pass this our client to the client registration repository. Client registration repository provide the filter with all the necessary information about the client, and it is a bin. So let's add this public client registration repository. As you see here, registration repository, and this will return. This is like in-memory user details manager. It also have the in-memory. Let's delete this. In-memory client registration. So it is checking. Here we have a list of client registration. In this case, we are dealing with only one client registration, and we access this with this dot client registration. Okay, so let's check out what happening. Change return type to in-memory. Okay, so instead of accessing the in-memory client registration, we accesses the reactive in-memory client registration repository. So now it's okay. Before testing our application with OAuth2, first let's go back to add the OAuth2 in the filter. Okay, here we will add the OAuth2 login, and we will provide some detail here. So we will use the form as the name of the lambda variable. We will access the login page. So we will permit the login page here as well. Login page, we need to permit it here so that we will not have trouble accessing it, and then set the default successful URL as home as well. Default successful URL, okay, so it better now. And what we will do next, we will pass this link. This is our base URL followed by the authorization URL for the GitHub. Let's go back to the HTML. So login, we will add this instead of what we found. Okay, so let's add this. Okay, now it better. So to test the application, I will first log out from the GitHub. Let me sign out. Sign out all from the account. Okay, and for this I will be logging out of. Okay, log out, log out. So let's check what is happening inside this. Let's rerun the application. We are having trouble logging out the user. So let's go up to okay, we already log out. Okay, so first let's test this link. Sign in with GitHub. Okay, so as you see, it is taking us back to the login page. That is because we have another URL which is not authorized. Let's check. So we need to change the registration ID. We have an error there. Let's go to the security config phase. Okay, so registration, the spelling, we have the spelling error, registration ID, and then there is URL we just provide. As you see here, we have this, and we need to allow access to all these URL. Okay, so let's go back to the security config, and then in the request matches we just add this. So followed by and this will be like this, followed by hash like this. So any URL we have folder, it will grant access to this. So let me run this application again and check our implementation. Okay, so let's go back to login. So sign in with GitHub. So you see it take us to GitHub. Here is the picture that we have, and when we provide the detail aliusahaboadam@gmail.com, and then we provide the password. Sign in. You see we have these coding techniques by Aliu Sahabo, authorize Aliu. So it will take us to home. Okay, we have having error here, so because okay, you see we have this home, and then once we log out, let log out. So it take us to this logout successfully. Okay, so this is what we have built in this tutorial, and I hope you will subscribe this channel for more videos. Thank you for watching.